Okay, so I thought what I would do for my output or my code example is actually do a short video for mine, just to kind of give you my experience of doing it. And I really want to give a shout out to Loop for doing it, Loopy, for doing it before I did mine, which is awesome. And his example is a really good one. And it's just great to have some students work ahead. That way, if other students run into issues, that'd be that might be helpful. Okay, so on my stimulus check, and remember, the idea here is for you to attempt your own code before you look at somebody's, or give yourself that time. And I know I discussed that in the video, so don't cheat that process because it's really like doing push ups when you want to learn to be stronger. So if you want to learn to be able to do this stuff, give yourself enough time. Struggle if you need to, and that can feel kind of weird sometimes. And I'll tell you, on mine, I actually was surprised. I kind of had a moment of, oh my God, because I couldn't get my code to work. And I'll explain what I did and how I fixed it. And just know that it's pretty normal when you're coding this stuff to run into issues. Okay. Okay. So here's my code example. What I did is do a little bit of documentation just to say I set up some global variables. And what this block is that because I wanted to test the different branches of my logic, I went ahead and left those in there. So in case I ever wanted to go back, I could just copy and paste or uncomment, right? So I could uncomment that. Now, hopefully, by watching Andrew's code is you can't actually leave this in there because of the way the variables are set up. And so just, know that the reason I do it is just to test them. I do tend to use single quotes. You can use double quotes. I tend to not use semicolons at the end. But I do notice that VS Code is starting to kind of enforce double quotes, and I'm not sure why. So anyway, I set up a variable called filing status adjusted income. And the reason I put a line here is kind of separate because these two would change and I left these two kind of the same. But of course, both of them, well, actually this one would change because I set up this check amount. So then my logic, I could update that check amount or have it be 0 on my output. And of course, I can vary the number of children as well. So what I did here is I wrote an if statement and I said if filing status, and this is something that this triple equals, I'm pretty sure Andrew didn't cover, so which is part of why I decided to do a video to cover this as well. So there's a difference between, and this is actually, and again, it happens to all of us, is that I had my code this way. And I couldn't figure out for, probably 20 minutes, like what was going on. I was trying different things and I couldn't get the output that I wanted. So I was like, wonder why. And then it just dawned on me. And here's what it is in JavaScript, right? And actually, this is the difference between double and triple equal. But the difference between just equal, which is an assignment, so it assigns. So in this case, this code says filing status, which was defined as single, right? So if I had run this block where it was married, when it hit this right here, it actually wouldn't compare. It would actually do an assignment. And that can throw some people off, especially who don't come from another language where, equals is not assignment, although I've seen it fairly common that it is assignment. So, and two, the other thing about this is that I did the and. So remember, and actually, if you think about it, or maybe this will help you because this can be kind of confusing to write this, but let me just read it and then maybe come back and show you something about this. So if filing status is equal to single, and I notice here it's changing my quotes, and So both of these have to be true, and adjusted income is less than 75,000, then it's going to run this block. And then here, the check amount equal to 600 is actually doing what I want, which is setting the value here to 600 plus the number of kids times 600. Now, the order of operations could come in here too. If I was having some output that I wouldn't expect, I could also make sure by using parentheses that that was the case and doing it correctly as far as the order at which it's doing the calculations. So really what this is doing, and I did the else ifs just handled the other conditions, and this is a block. So this is a, when I was talking about up here, I'm checking my logic branches. This is making sure that each of my branches is running correctly. So that's the code itself. Again, you could have written this code many different ways, but what I want to show you is when you're using the AND, what JavaScript is going to do, it's going to look at, is this true? Is filing status equal to 0, right? Now, in this case, because of the data, the variables I have set up, it is true. So what it does is it determines that this is true, and then it asks, is adjusted income less than this? So this is true. And because I'm using the AMP, if both of these are true, then this says really, if true, and in this case it is true. So it's evaluating each of the sides of that and, because for an and, the both sides have to be true in order for it to run the block. Okay, so if we were to do that same thing down here, this, right, this would be false. Now, adjusted income. Now, in this case, adjusted income, but it's, again, it's not going to run this block for this data. But if I did have it set up to look at, right, the married data, then it would look at adjusted income less than this. So in this case, it happens to be true, but it's not hitting this block. And because both have to be, this would be false. Now, last thing I'll say about this is another thing that I'm going to teach you later on, and how I figured out that this was throwing my logic off. And by the way, this is just a symbol console log here, is I ended up, and you don't have to do this, but I will show you this, and we'll start doing this in a couple weeks, is I set up an index file. I linked the stimulus pro, the JavaScript, and the reason I did that, and I'm just going to run something I'll talk to you later about called live server. You could also just run the file. Oh, I need to actually go into my public in the week 2. I wasn't running it from the right directory. Now there's nothing here, but if I do inspect and I come over here, and you're going to learn more and more as we go through this course about DevTools. I go into sources, I click on my stimulus. What I can do here is I can set a breakpoint. Now you can do this inside of VS Code, but I like doing it inside of Chrome just because I've used Chrome DevTools, and this is just what's called debugging. And so what I did here is once I set that breakpoint, which means my code's going to stop, I hit refresh. And so what I can do here is watch my code run. And I'm telling you, this is such a great skill. So if I wanted to just step through, right now it shows me where it stopped. It actually will show me if I just hover over these things, and I can do a step into, and it'll show me right here, oh yeah, and I can see what block's running. And then once that finishes, I can see it bypass all of these other blocks and jump right to here. Now, you don't have to do this for this assignment, but I'm just telling you, it helped me because I had thrown me off that I had put an equal here and my code wasn't working. Okay, so I hope that helps you out. I hope that gives you just another insight into here. I hope you've learned something in doing this assignment. The last thing I will say is something that Loopy asked me last night on Discord was about, do you have to handle the in-betweens. And here's what I want to say. You just have to account, your code has to handle the filing status, the adjusted gross income, and the number of kids. And then reading the information here shows you how to calculate those things. And he was asking me about checks reduced to, and it was probably this one. And you can, if you want, actually have your code handle this, but as long as it handles the basic logic. And again, what's great here is that you can use this to figure out if your code's working, if it's creating the correct output. This is a new assignment I've just developed this semester, so what's great is the feedback that I get helps me make this a better assignment for students going forward, and hopefully for students coming after this point in the semester. So any other clarifying questions? It's great to ask out on Discord if you need it. Have a great one. Talk to you soon.